right, hello there. We're going to give it just a second here. We're having some difficulties with the link, so we're reposting the links. And then we will begin here.
So we thought we had found a good spot here at Universal. We were able to find some shade and we were able to find a table. But then right before we went live, or as we were going live, it just wouldn't actually connect. And now it says that we're live, but
I think it's working now, so. All right, let's go ahead and get started then and get talking while we hopefully let people be able to find us there somewhere here as we got the link going. So again, thanks for joining us, whether you are in the live chat, welcome. And for those that watch later or listen, we'll have an audio-only version as well up on the podcast channel there as well. It was a big week of announcements with Knott giving their final rundown of everything to expect. Horror Nights with a lot of information all dropped at once as well. That was on Thursday. And then Fright Fest over at Six Flags clocked in right after that. So a lot of information to process. We want to talk about these three big events and mostly obviously focusing on the new things that came out. We are recording this set at Universal Studios Hollywood. We've kind of tucked away in as decent of a spot as we can find here. We're also going to do a little walking tour a little bit later on. We'll have that on the YouTube channel of just all of the props that are up, the scare zones. There is so much going on, so we're going to kind of focus on the upper lot here because there's a lot to see. And I know you haven't gotten to see much of it because we just got here, but I kind of took a spin around while you were getting set up, and there is a whole lot of things to see here. So we will get into all of that. But first, let's talk about Scary Farm and the announcements there. So the big kind of announcement, hey there, House Devan, Drew, good to see you there. The big announcement, the new maze, as well as then tickets going on sale, the buffets, all of that. But the new maze coming for 2022 here, the Grimoire, which kind of seems to pick up on the Invitation to Terror storyline from the show at Mystery Lodge last year. It says, turn the page and enter the world of an ancient relic whose dark stories exist purely to turn your greatest nightmares into a reality. Enter the world of a mysterious spell book and escape the demonic creatures inside to be eternally trapped within. Thoughts?
it's different, or kind of. It's weird. I watched the trailer and stuff, and I really didn't have too much of a reaction to it, I guess. I'm interested to see what it is and what their take is on it, but I didn't really have much of a response to it. It was just kind of like, okay, cool, we'll see. I don't know, did you have a reaction, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was happy to see it, just in that I think it was a fun kind of idea. It's the whole, I mean, we've talked about this before, the whole like video announcement over the live announcement thing, it just doesn't quite, work the same for me as we've got spoiled with having those awesome announcements events at Knott's Scary Farm or at Knott's getting ready for Scary Farm. So it's still like, it doesn't really click a lot of times to opening night, but I definitely thematically am interested in it. I'm curious. It's a neat spot over there behind Mystery Lodge. It's nice to see it getting some use that way. So, I mean, I'm definitely excited to experience it and kind of see what the next steps in the story are. Also, a really big thing about it is that it's a new maze in a spot that we didn't have a maze last year there. Hey there, Vincent.
We did have a show.
Yeah, we had the show there.
Actual Mystery Lodge.
Yeah, and so with that, then let's talk about the other announcements because that does tie into the shows. They kind of finalize. So on the Calico Mine stage, we have La Magnifique, Carnival du Grotesque, and the idea there, they've made really clear, no music on the big stage. It's all going to be sideshow kind of acts, reimagined with death-defying feats and dangerous carnival acts. So fitting into the carnival theme there. We've got Conjurers, the Dark Magic Show, and they really seem to focus more than in past releases on the idea of this being a dark show and its location next to The Undertaker. It says, the place right next to The Undertaker. It seems that with death no longer at the end, The Undertaker has nearly been run out of business. Fortunately, in all his dealings with death and the afterlife, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. Tricks will come in handy as he crosses over to the other side to show our still living guests what he's learned. So the Birdcage Theater getting Conjurers Dark Magic, and they've had a show there the last few years. Conjurers is not brand new, but this does seem a little more themed, it feels, than in the past. I don't know if it really is or not.
Yeah, I don't know if, if once you get in there, the magicians will kind of just do their own thing, or if they will be tied in. But if it's tied in, that's cool, and if it's themed and stuff, I think that's cool. So, I don't think we've really made it into the birdcage the last few years, or at least I haven't.
No, we've done conjures. And I don't recall how many years they've done it now, but we did it the first year, I think, and it wasn't we did it, I think, a couple times that year with friends, and just because there wasn't really much of a thematic link, I think it just didn't really feel very Scary Farm to us. Not that Puppet Up does, but Puppet Up has such humor that it just kind of felt. Plus, Puppet Up is in that massive theater, lots of room, etc. But yeah, Conjures is one we've kind of just let slide off of our calendar, on all of our visits. So I'm sure we'll give it a try this year, as it sounds like it's more linked in there. Now, the biggest announcement for me, and it's not specific just to the nighttime, but just of interest to me, was that they're doing a behind-the-scenes tour for Scary Farm. So for those that may not be familiar, I mean, behind the scenes of Scary Farm is like why there's a park side of Parks and Cons, because I was so interested in the behind-the-scenes side of Knott's Scary Farm, and so he said, well, maybe if we cover theme parks, someday they'll let us cover like behind-the-scenes stuff for Scary Farm, and so we've had the fortune of doing that.
Like Scare School and stuff that was being offered to media or some media.
Very rare, but yeah.
Yeah, and so we were like, that sounds cool. Let's see what we can do, and so we got to experience. I think the last time that they had media out for Scare School, we were in that group and we were able to see it then.
And a lot of times, this is the time of year we get a lot of questions from people that run like websites or are influencers, and they're like, how do I get media for Scary Farm, or how do I get media for Horror Nights? And I would say, like, for us, I don't know at this exact moment how it all works, but for us it was like, let's cover theme parks for a year or two, all of their events, and then maybe they'll include us for the Halloween stuff, even though Halloween was like our main interest. And so like we were covering Soap City was like our first thing we actually covered at Knott's, and then we were fortunate they brought us in for Scare School and all of that. But the idea here with Beyond the Fog, a behind-the-scenes tour of Scary Farm, is that no longer do you need to be media to get some behind the scenes. It seems that it's $80 a ticket. They seem to be running tours every half hour, starting I think at 10:30 a.m. on all of these Scary Farm days. And with that fee, you get this, what sounds like it's going to be about a 3-hour tour with all sorts of behind-the-scenes things. They say you'll have an army of talented builders and creators that work to see the success. For the first time, you'll be able to pull back the veil for Lights On, Frights Off tour. It's a 3-hour behind-the-scenes look at Knott's Scary Farm, where you'll learn the history of Scary Farm and take part in a walking tour of multiple Knott's Scary Farm mazes with the lights on. Grab your walking shoes for a one-of-a-kind opportunity to go beyond the fog. So that would be incredibly interesting to me. I mean, again, we've had the fortune of doing a bunch of behind-the-scenes things, but there's always like a highlight of the season to me. So that, even though it's not specific to Scary Farm, now the $80 does not get you into any of the nighttime event. It's not Scary Farm.
Into the park.
Yeah, it is a daytime. It is purely like I'm in the park, and this is a daytime kind of upcharge VIP kind of 3-hour experience.
Yeah, I think one of the marketing people said that we would basically be, or that people would be meeting like near the chicken dinner restaurant, and then basically ending at that same location. So yeah, there's no chance to like go on the roller coasters or anything like that. It's you're starting there and you're ending there, and then obviously if you have a day ticket, then you can go or whatever. But yeah, it's just for the tour for the $80. So yeah, it sounds cool. And finances being not ideal all the time, or at this time, I don't know that we would pay. I mean, I'd like to go, but fortunately they're having us out. I think they're supposed to be going out.
Yeah, I mean, to me it would be a must thing. Like, it's too cool for me. Like, and as I said, I mean, we've dedicated 8 years of covering theme parks because of wanting to do behind the scenes Scary Farm. So we would definitely pay the $80 times 2 to do it in my book there. But it is different than, I mean, this is about behind the scenes, and obviously not everybody is as interested in that side of things. Now, I do think a lot of times the people that would listen to a show like this or watch or be in a live stream are interested in behind the scenes of stuff. It's kind of a core, I think, demographic in that. But I mean, I think it's a very reasonable price for a 3-hour tour. I mean, we'll see what it all ends up being, but I am excited to check it out. And they have said they'll have us kind of do a preview of it at some point. So we'll definitely cover it. We'll share whatever they allow us to share, whether it's video, audio, live stream, whatever. We'll bring it to you.
Yep, definitely. So $80. And then they also announced, is it on the press release, the $500?
No, that wasn't on the press release, no.
So I think it was
The very important monster.
yeah. So basically, I think it was like $5.50
Yep.
per person, if I recall correctly, and it seems like it's going to be kind of like it was like a Disney tour,
Like a VIP tour.
VIP tour where they have someone who's like just walking you to the front of lines and stuff and giving you a tour. And I don't have it in front of me, and my phone is what we're streaming on, so I can't check. But I don't remember the specifics of what it includes.
Well, it includes like a shirt, and it's the buffet, it's the ticket in. It's a big experience. It's a minimum of 2 people, a maximum of 6 for your group. So front of the line, they march you right in there. So it's a really cool experience. Now that is something that would be too expensive for us to ever do, no matter what the scenario is. But it does sound really cool, and as we know, there's all sorts of different levels of money. Particularly in California, there's some very, very affluent people that could easily afford something like that, and what a cool way to spend the night. So I have no doubt it's going to be a busy experience for some people, but yeah, it's something brand new, and it really is a way to get the VIP experience. But yeah, that wasn't part of the press release because it's going to be, I think, such a niche group overall.
And to clarify, it's $5.50 per person, so it's not like you can take 6 friends and split the cost.
No,
it's
yeah.
per person, so fairly pricey, but
Yep.
that was also part of what's available now.
Just it, yeah. And the buffet is up, and all the prices went up a little bit across the board. Still a far cheaper experience than like horror nights. When you look at just the various nights and the front of the line and all those types of things. But there was a bump up in that way. We did want to say once again, we know we plugged it with our Patreon group, but we are doing kind of a Parks and Cons Scary Farm night there, so please make sure to check Mighty Networks if you are in our Patreon group there and you're going to be hanging out with us at Scary Farm. So with that said, though, let's move to Horror Nights. We're here at Universal Studios, and they really had the biggest set of announcements of the week and really of the year in terms of just dropping everything all at once here. And there's been a slow trickle of information, as there always is for Horror Nights. You had, Halloween and the weekend and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, here's everything else that we've been waiting for. We didn't know if it'd be a bunch of announcements, but a lot of them all came in at once here. So let's go. Actually, we want to go with we have a couple questions in the chat there and a couple highs and stuff. So let's hit those before I kind of launch into the details of the Terror Tram. There's a lot of change there. So Cars1223, hello to you. Escapades with Ernie, hello as well there. Just in time, glad I bought my Knott Scary Farm Pass last year. We are with you as well.
Yeah, we got ours as soon as we were able to because we didn't know what the situation was going to be after last year, and so we have ours also.
So, Cards1223, do you know if Hogwarts Harry Potter will be open during Horror Nights? Last time I went to the event, they closed that section off. So it will definitely be open. In fact, that was part of the announcement this week, is that the Death Eaters will be making their California debut. So that's something, the Death Eaters from the Harry Potter mythology have been a part of Horror Nights at Universal Orlando, but it is not something that we've had officially here. They also started using Wizarding World in Hollywood as a walkway to the Curious George area mazes, so that will be part of the experience. It's actually a really exciting part of the experience, so we'll get to more about that in a minute, but I know that was for a lot of people, including me. I was like one of the really high up there, like I really wanted to see them here, and that idea of having them is quite exciting. But they really led off the press release focusing on the Terror Tram, and it sounds like a pretty big expansion to Terror Tram, and it answers the question of whether or not Nope would fit into it. So it says this year's iconic Terror Tram expands to include a cinematic twist on Jordan Peele's blockbuster films in a crossover experience that reimagines Us, featuring the tethered, a revolutionary army of vengeful doppelgangers whose uprising invades the all-new Jupiter's Claim set. And this kicks off Thursday, September 8th. So the Terror Tram being unique here, let's get into what you actually do. Once guests disembark the tram, the terror is unleashed. This year, the villainous Hollywood Harry unravels Hollywood Harry's Halloween, a nightmarish spectacle with a demented cast of characters that winds past the iconic Psycho House, then through Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds set. As guests make their way through a choreographed massacre of Jupiter's Claim set from Nope, they will encounter the Tethered from Us in a frightening finale of epic proportions. After the success of 2019's Us House, and the experience will feature an all-new choreography by conceptual artist and choreographer Madeline Hollander. So That I think was really exciting to me. I mean, I forget who it was. One of our friends had said, "Do you think they're going to include Nope on the tour?" And immediately I was like, "No, not because it doesn't fit, but just I'm like, we're so used to kind of a very similar footprint for the last, I don't know, 5 years or whatever it is." So I'm like, "No, they're going to have us jump on right for them." And then it was like, "Wait a second, that's not that far away." And then I was kind of thinking, well, the studio tour kind of looked like last time we took the studio tour that it could easily connect there. And now we have the answer, which I am all for, because if you've ever listened to us before, I am a big fan of Terror Tram because I'm a big fan of like walking on Hollywood sets and behind the scenes. And so although the monsters are out like swinging their, axes and things like that, I'm just like loving that we're right there on the Psycho set. Like I'm paying way more attention to the motel to the right than the monsters off to the left there. So the idea that we're going to get to walk up through the Nope area, that there's going to be this us tethered scene, I am incredibly excited about that. To me, that was a huge announcement just for my own personal excitement for the event.
Yeah, I'm pretty curious on how that'll look. I'm like, yeah, it's really exciting to see how that's going to exactly connect and what the us portion is going to be and stuff. But yeah, it sounds really cool and a nice way to kind of end that journey, because if you're taking a walk, it's not like a very short walk to do that loop, but we enjoy it and we like it. So I'm definitely glad that that's a part of it and that we get to experience that, because Nope, if you haven't seen Nope, I strongly suggest you see it before.
Definitely see Nope before you do it.
Before going through the tram, even just on the regular day tram, because we rode it once before we had seen the movie, and it was like, okay, that's cool, these scenes are cool, and I know that they had brought over the sets and that they were actual sets and stuff, so I thought, okay, that's cool, and the inflatable guy is cute. But then once we saw the movie and then we did it again, it's like, oh, okay, that's much cooler that way. So if you haven't seen it, strongly suggest you see it before coming out to Universal and doing the tram, either day or Horror Nights version, because it adds a lot if you actually know the story and stuff.
And when we did the tour, we tried to wait till like the end, because the tram during normal day operations does end earlier than the park closing, and often the park just closes on the other side too, but we waited for like that last tram, or like that last group of trams, as we were getting close to whatever it was, the 7 or 8 o'clock time that day that we were here. And so by the time we got to Nope, it was kind of a little darker, a little bit more past dusk. And it was such a cool way to have the kind of coordination of things. That should be really cool at night. And then the tethered, I thought Horror Nights did a really good job. The actors that performed inside the house for us a few years ago, they were so good. They were so good. I love going back and even just watching video walkthroughs from that house. And so having that tied into it, again, I'm a huge fan of that. So that was all exciting, but that was not it. They dropped a whole lot more than that. I mean, they did announce, and we already had announced over at Midsummer Scream, but they included in this press release Scarecrow the Reaping. We're not going to go ahead and talk about that yet again, but we will talk about the 3 other mazes that they all dropped in as well. So Killer Clowns from Outer Space. We know we've seen the clown tent down there by the sound stages that act like Transformers. They announced that coming back, or their version of it returning, which was one of my favorite mazes that year. So we've got a return of that. Then we've got La Llorona, the Weeping Woman, a classic for Hollywood fans. Now, that was something before you and I started covering, so we just barely missed that. That was the year before we started covering Horror Nights, and so we actually didn't go that year, because at the time, we're like, wow, this is really expensive and really far, and we couldn't afford multiple Halloween events, and so we just didn't do it that year. So I'm excited to see it, and I'm really excited for the hardcore fans that they get it back. Then you've got the Universal Horror Hotel. Now, this one's an original concept, which I know a lot of fans, I think just in general for Horror Nights, are excited about how many things are original this year. So we've got Universal Horror Hotel lives up to its reputation as the original owner, who was executed years ago, and his dastardly deeds continue to haunt the place today. And guests must escape his vengeful spirit or risk becoming a permanent resident. So those 3 new mazes. Then we get Jabberwockies. We kind of figured they were returning. In fact, today they announced on their own social media, what is it, the Jabberwocky-verse, like multiverse of Jabberwockies or something like that is their theme. So, it's a fun little break of a show there. We know a lot of people are big fans of Jabberwockies, and I think you and I are moderate fans of the show at Horror Nights. So all of those announced. Then we've got the Scare Zones. So we've got El Pueblo del Terror. It's an extension of La Llorona. So this sounds very much like what we had in the past over there in that kind of Parisian area adjacent to the courtyard, where you'll exit the La Llorona maze and then you will be hit by monsters right away, which is really fun. The only downside to it, as we've talked about in the past, is that you can't normally, or at least depending on operations, you can't repeat that scare zone. You can't kind of just hang out in the scare zone, because it's like you're exiting the maze and then they push you out that way and you're not able to kind of go back for it. So,
and I think last year that was our experience, but then like at the beginning of the night, but then by the end of the night it seemed like they were letting people go through the scare zone from the exit side. So yeah, I think that will kind of, as you said, depend on the operations of a particular night. It might even change during the night like it did for us, but yeah, definitely might not be able to go back through there unless you do the whole maze again.
And then you got Sideshow Slaughterhouse, which this is the New York streets. It says a battle zone between performers of a seedy carnival sideshow. And I was just over there, and there's a two-headed girl, and there's kind of this other carnival type character off to the side and things like that. So again, we'll do a video later on our channel where you can see kind of all the latest from that. And then Clown Saws, that sounds like that's going to be kind of at the entrance of the park, features a demonic troupe of clowns who band together to terrorize guests with chainsaws as they enter the park. Now, in addition to that, though, two things that are kind of, well, one, we talked about the Death Eaters, we'll come back to that, but another one is over by the Animal Actors stage. There is its own kind of scare zone being built there, which is very much developed and kind of has like these kind of whimsical kind of goblin type like characters.
Like kind of harvest type characters. Like I thought I saw a scarecrow maybe.
Yep, there's scarecrows over there. There's a bunch of signs about not, don't come this way. There's really this great scene. In fact, if you followed our social media to come to this, it's like a knight that's kind of been speared, and then there's a werewolf on the other side of him. So some really cool stuff. Again, we'll do video of that separately, but that's not even included in these announcements. So I'm not sure that's just kind of meant to be kind of a surprise for people or what, but I love seeing more theming up there, because one of the things you and I always talk about with horror nights is, as busy as the lines get, one of the challenges is that there's not many places to kind of take a break in the themed environment. There's a lot of places to take breaks and kind of just be out of the area, but like if you want to sit in the monsters, there's not many places to just sit around and be around monsters, but it looks like there may be more options for that, which makes me really excited. Then they also mentioned, I mean, we've got the rides, Jurassic World, Transformers, Revenge of the Mummy, Simpsons, but then they just kind of slide it in at the end, which I think, again, for a lot of people is almost the headlines. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter will also be open during Halloween Horror Nights, inviting guests to experience some of their favorite attractions, including Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey and Flight of the Hippogriff. For the first time ever, Death Eaters, a group of Voldemort's most devoted followers, will roam Hogsmeade Village, looking to find others willing to show loyalty to the Dark Lord's cause. And that is very exciting to me, because Potter is such a wonderful land to walk through, and we love it all year round. But it's always been like, wow, I'd love to see it creepy one time. Just a little bit of kind of the monster side of it, the dark side of it. And finally, we're going to get to see that at Horror Nights, and I think that's going to be mesmerizing.
Agreed, yeah. I mean, it always felt like such a, I don't know, it's always kind of sad when like, they had the walls and we weren't able to even like walk through. And then last year we were able to walk through, but just to get to the other mazes. And then this time to actually have stuff that we can actually see and like, seems like kind of interact with to some degree and stuff is going to be really cool.
So I think all in all, the announcements were like, I feel like a real home run. I saw a lot of activity on social media, people being excited about hearing all of that. And I think the approach of keeping a lot of things quiet until whatever it was, 3 weeks out, and then dropping this giant chunk on people really kind of just worked and got everybody like super amped, because I didn't see many people that weren't like excited about it. And then the idea of adding in, Nope, original IPs, the Tethered, from us, the Death Eaters, like there's a lot of pieces to it. And I think in the end, the thing that has me most excited is I just feel like there's more experiences that we'll be able to participate in that are not waiting in just a line for 2 hours to do a maze. Because as much as I love the mazes, and I know you do as well, a lot of the fun for us in a Halloween season is being in the atmosphere of the place, is wandering around and seeing characters scare in scare zones or watching shows. And although there's still just Jabberwockies as far as like an official show, it feels like there's more show elements in the night to kind of round things out more.
Agreed, yeah, definitely. I'm all for that. If we can just find a chair somewhere or a bench or a planter or something to sit down and just people watch basically and watch the monsters do their thing, because they're incredibly talented. And so it's been a little frustrating to not be able to like really appreciate the work that they're doing, but it sounds like hopefully this year we'll actually have more opportunities to do that. So I think that's a really cool thing. And And yeah, I mean, if we're able to come back a second night and for something, then yeah, if we've done all the mazes, as you know, the park gets more crowded and stuff, we can just hang out and enjoy the work and stuff. And so that's definitely a plus to me.
Yeah, again, for like the type of people that would listen to a show like this or watch a show like this, I mean, these are Halloween fans that appreciate the nuances of scare acting and things like that. And so you can't pull up a chair inside of a maze to watch people work, you know, but you can in scare zones. And I know it's something that's really enjoyable because these are talented people in all of these parks that have those jobs on the streets, and to be able to watch them doing their thing is really cool. And I'm glad that's going to be a part, or at least it sounds like it's going to be a part of Horror Nights in 22 here in Hollywood. So excited about that. So before we go to Fright Fest, the next announcement's there for a big park. We got some comments and some, let's see, just in time, better than the Purge tram in the past years. Glad they changed it up. I think change is exciting in a lot of ways. I'm a big Purge fan, but I definitely, this has me the most excited I've been about Terror Tram in a long time. Adam Walsh, good to see you, Adam. Love the Haunt Talk. I'm going on a trip to the RIP tour again this year. Expensive, but completely worth it. I've done it the past 3 years. We have never done the RIP tour, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've heard a lot of people really love it, and it's good to hear that you've loved it as well, Adam. Adam also said, I miss watching the witch scare people in Ghost Town. We lost the comment there. Here it comes back. Oh, we lost it. Oh. Seeing the witch in Ghost Town, she would blend in with the trees. She was great. Yes, we were just over by her hiding spot a couple days ago, daytime, and thinking about her doing her little jump scare there, and she was absolutely like one of the most talented people ever over there at Knott's in Ghost Town. All right, let's talk Fright Fest now. So Fright Fest, they have kept things like really quiet in general. Like on the website long ago, it was like, hey, the event begins September 10th. Okay, you know, we knew it was coming. There was no questions about that. The hours reflected it. But in terms of what the event would be, a lot more information came this week. Although I know there's still some questions. I saw people asking these questions online of Six Flags, and I know you and I talked about some of these being a little confused as well. But let's start out with this. Fright Fest is presented once again by Snickers. It boasts a grand total of 14 electrifying haunted houses and scare zones. With nightmare zombies lurking around every corner, Six Flags also adds a sinister element to some of the park's monster coasters by turning off the lights, leaving riders to face their fears in total darkness. And for the little monsters, Boo Fest offers frightfully fun family activities during the day with a trick-or-treat trail in Bugs Bunny World. So we know that's one thing with new management or new CEO for Six Flags Magic Mountain has been a focus on trying to do more with families there. And so it makes sense that they're, you know, kind of hyping up the Bugs Bunny World portion of things there. We couldn't be more excited to bring the Legacy Halloween event back to the park. Fright Fest is upping the scare factor with an all-new haunted house and 2 new scare zones. So that kind of tells us when we get some of the questions that have been coming up on social, I think are kind of answered by that statement there. So that's why I read it. And it's an eerie new show plus a new haunted happy hour and buffet. This is all from the park president sharing that information there. Okay, so here are the things that are added this year. Truth or Dare, a haunted facility that leaves guests questioning their every move with never-before-done scare effects in a warped game of Truth or Dare. This is located near Full Throttle. So we've heard Red's Revenge went away, and this is what's replacing it. Also, when they talk about returning mazes, that's confirmed there. So Truth or Dare is going where Red's Revenge is. I'm very curious how that maze is going to work, because on the surface, I'm having a hard time envisioning like what that maze is, Truth or Dare, and how like a high-capacity theme park attraction is going to work with that sort of thing, but we will see. Now, the one I know a lot of people had questions about, Devil's Triangle, the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean haunted by the many souls lost to the Devil's Triangle who prey on guests as they enter the park. So it doesn't say whether it's a maze or a scare zone, whereas the next one says it is a scare zone, but we can go back to the statement by the CEO. This is by the park president. This is definitely a scare zone, and it's at the front of the park, so that's going to take the place of kind of that Devil's Dominion, if that wasn't the correct term, I forget what it is, but that kind of the devils and demons that were at the front of the park. Then the next one, this is a scare zone. It's one of the largest scare zones, Carnival Hell, H-E-L-L, all capital letters there. One of the largest scare zones in the park. It features the carnivorous band of carnies from a once thriving circus So now this one sounds like it might be something more similar to like what Horror Nights has done with kind of the gauntlet thing. I'm wondering if they're going to use the treat trail from the daytime Bugs Bunny and kind of feed people in. So it's kind of a maze, kind of a scare zone, often called a gauntlet, I feel like these days. That's what it sounds like it's going to be. Then we have a show, The Rising, an ominous show set on the remains of a sunken pirate ship, revealing the battle of good versus evil and the power of the demonic Devil's Claw. This is located in the Devil's Triangle. So in that Devil's Triangle scare zone, I guess this is the show that will be part of that. And I don't think anywhere it says exactly what section of the park that is in exactly. And then the addition, kind of the buffet type of a style thing. It's called Spirits with the Spirits. An evening of monstertainment featuring music, spirits of both natures, and devilish treats located in the West Picnic Pavilion. Plus, don't miss other ghoulish grub only available during Fright Fest at select locations around the park. So those are the new things. Then returning, Willoughby's Resurrected, Condemned, Vault 666 Unlocked, Sewer of Souls, and Aftermath 2. And that goes with the scare zones returning, the Dead Zone, Terrorizing Dark Developments, City Under Siege, Territory Twisted, Nightmares, A Twisted Fantasy, and Exile Hill. And then more spectacular shows on most nights. Unleashed will be in City Under Siege, and then Voodoo Nights returns to the Full Throttle Plaza with their music and kind of cover band type stuff there. So more new announcements than we're used to, I think, with Fright Fest in a single year. A lot of times Fright Fest is a lot of the same things in like one new maze or one new scare zone, especially the last, let's say, 3 or 4 of the opening year. So some interesting things there. Anything really grab your attention of the list of new stuff?
It's just, I'm glad they finally put the press release out and gave us all the information, because for a while there, without any news coming out, it was like, well, is there actually going to be a thing? And we knew that there was because it was on the website and stuff, but having been so quiet, it was kind of like, well, we didn't know. So I'm definitely relieved to have the press release and have all the information and stuff. And I think it's great that that there are these new additions and stuff, because as you said, there isn't oftentimes a lot of change from year to year at Fright Fest. So yeah, definitely all sounds positive, and so definitely excited for that.
Yeah, I think that, as you said, I mean, just hearing it all, and this format is fine with me too. Like now it's like, okay, drop it out, whatever it was, 3 weeks ahead of the event, like here it all is. Okay, cool. It was a while there where like, are they doing Fright Fest? Like we knew, again, it was on the calendar, but just there wasn't the trick of announcements the way that, Scary Farm had, the way that Horror Nights had, etc. It was just kind of like it was on the calendar, and when you went to the website, it was kind of like, come back later for more information. So it was kind of, I don't want to say it was unexpected, but we just didn't really know what to expect. We were kind of wondering if the information was going to come out, but they kind of mimicked what Horror Nights did. I mean, Horror Nights had a lot more to announce, for sure, but they kind of followed that mold of like, here's everything all at once, 3 weeks out, let's do it, and try to really capitalize on people being hyped as we're closer, versus, now announcing things back in May or June or whatever it might be. So some interesting things there. I'm always a big fan of the scare zones at, especially I always love seeing Innocence up on Exile Hill. There's some classic things there. I love Willoughby's and kind of the classic Haunted Mansion vibe there and stuff. So I'm always excited to get back to Fright Fest. I know we have to figure out, so we have D23 Expo that weekend. The night before D23 Expo begins, we have Horror Nights opening night, and then Fright Fest opening night is Saturday night. So normally we'd be like all in on D23 Expo and not leaving, or we'd be all in out in LA for like Halloween stuff on a different weekend. But this year, those 2 weekends are the same weekend. So we're kind of figuring out how we navigate these things and where everything fits. But I know I'm excited to get back here. And honestly, being here at Universal Studios today and seeing so much decor, so many figures out, so many like very visible, spooky characters, I'm like I'm all that much more in Halloween mode as of today, I feel like.
Yeah, it definitely. Well, it also doesn't hurt that we were at the All-American Collectors Show a little while ago, and there were a lot of vendors that had a lot of Halloween things too, so that helps as well. But in regards to Fright Fest, if you've not been, and I don't think it's any different, it's kind of not a hard ticket event. You have access to all the scare zones and stuff with your day ticket or with your pass if you have a pass. But to go into the mazes, you do need to pay for a wristband.
Yep.
And I don't know what the cost is this year. I haven't looked it up, but that's at least how it's been in the past.
Yeah, and they do have a front of the line version as well. And again, all that stuff's up on their website now, so it's there. So, all right, let's go back to the chat as we reach the end of the show here, or the near end, and see what else people are talking about they're excited about for Halloween this year. House to Van, OG Green Witch stalked like no other. It is a very true statement. Anybody that's familiar with Scary Farm and the OG Witch, you know exactly what he's talking about there. Kent Keltner, hope things are well. Going to Universal September 17th for HHN. Haven't been to studios since '89 when they still had the Back to the Future 2 setup. Wow, that is incredible. That was like we had, well, me, I'll speak for myself. I had like a 20-year portion of my life that was not here. Like the last time I was here as a kid, they were building E.T., and then the next time I was back, E.T. was gone. So there was a long portion of my life where Hollywood felt like it was on the other side of the planet from being a Riverside kid.
Yeah, and for me, I was in Riverside as I was growing up. And so I think I went to Universal for like my 11th birthday or something like that. And then was not back here until we were covering it.
Yeah, I mean, they're building Wizarding World. Was the next time you were here then?
Maybe. So yeah, I had a really long gap, and really only one visit as a kid, and so to my parents and stuff, it just LA felt like a really far away place, and it's an hour and a half or whatever. But yeah, it's now obviously it's much more part of our routine.
And then also from Kent, never been to Fright Fest. Not sure if the local one at Discovery Kingdom is worth going to. So we've been to Discovery Kingdom, but not for the Halloween event. And we did want to go back at some point to check it out. And I know there was a lot of overlap in terms of just, at the time, I should say, this was probably 5-6 years ago, in terms of how they marketed, some of the names and things like that. And we were curious to check it out, but we have not. So if anybody hits Discovery Kingdom this year, let us know what you think of it, because it is something that was on our list for a while. And then the pandemic hit, and then a lot of things changed in terms of like what we needed to do and stuff like that. So
yeah, we had talked about tying it in when we were up for like Winchester or
Great America,
but the drive was always just a little too far. Maybe the dates didn't overlap. I don't remember specifically, but yeah, we've never actually made it there ourselves for the nighttime stuff.
Yeah, we've done Winchester, we've done Great America, but not made it to Discovery Kingdom. So but Fright Fest, I mean, it does really take over a good portion of that park, and it is a big park, so there's quite a bit included in that event, I feel like. And again, for me, going back to what we talked about before, Nights, a big part of the fun of all these events is watching the actors work in the scare zones. And I think particularly at Fright Fest, those actors have a really tough chore with so many teens and younger kids, middle schoolers and things like that are still there from their day ticket, and they can be a rough bunch for the actors. I'm always kind of amazed at how the actors deal with some of the clientele that we've seen at Fright Fest, hassling them and mocking them and giving them a tough time. I mean, being a scare actor is incredibly difficult at any time.
Definitely. I did it for one night at Castle Dark a few years ago, and yeah, that was very challenging. I knew it was going to be challenging, but I wanted to be a good sport, and so I tried it, and I've not done it since. But yeah, Fright Fest, it's also kind of amusing in a mean sort of way, but a lot of those kids, that are in the strollers and barely walking around, the fact that they're there and then get so terrified, it's like sometimes it does kind of make me chuckle when I see how scared they are, because it's kind of amusing. But obviously, there can be very young children in there, and so yeah, it's different than they don't need a hard ticket and stuff to experience it and stuff. So yeah, it's also tough for the kids when they're still there when the lights and everything changes and the monsters come out. So definitely a different type of experience there.
For sure. All right, so with that, I think we're going to bring this stream or podcast, however you're consuming it, to a close here for now. If you are watching with us live, in about a half hour, we're going to do that walking tour of all of the props that are out on the upper lot. So there's a lot of skeletons and pumpkins and carnival creatures and things like that. So we're going to take you around and try to show you some of that so you can get an up-to-the-moment look at what Horror Nights look like. So we hope some of you will come back and join us there in about a half hour. And then for everybody that's listening in other forms, there will be more content on the way in the days and weeks ahead. We thank you for tuning in. One last comment here. Kent comes in. Great America here. Too much teens causing issues and harassing staff during haunt. So this year they're doing. We saw that, a family-friendly event. Yeah, it's a very different type of event this year with no scare factor to it, and they're very clear it's a family event. So yeah, Halloween haunt just kind of disappeared from Great America. So at very different times up there. So with that said, again, thank you all for tuning in and listening wherever you did. We appreciate the support, and we'll wrap up. And until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.